Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with a communications representative from the Southwest Region Office of MDOT, Nick Sharippa. I got to talk to him about how to drive around plows and basically really how to drive in winter conditions, period. This is that interview. The first question I asked him is, how should we be driving around snow plows? This is his answer in the rest of that interview.
Slowly. Plow trucks they're big, they're heavy. It takes them a lot of time to start. It takes me more time to stop, especially in the conditions you're used to seeing plow trucks in. So give them lots of room in every direction. If you're going to pass, do it safely. Try to be as consistent in your lane as you can be when passing. They anticipate people are going to pass them, obviously. I mean, they're not as fast as most traffic, so they anticipate people will pass. But if you go too fast and start to get squirrely, or if you're going too slow and riding in their blind spot, you're kind of putting everybody at jeopardy. So if you're going to pass, get a decent speed going, get around them as quickly and as safely as you can, and don't linger. You certainly don't want to be next to that truck. I mean, we all know what kind of slush and snow can come off a plow truck, so kind of get out of that way too. In all honesty, the best place to be is a few hundred yards behind a plow truck. There's not a single spot on the road that's going to be any more clear than just behind a plow truck. You want to be far enough back that you're not getting the salt spray and the dust cloud from the snow or any slush thrown up on your car, but you certainly want to be close enough that you're benefiting from what they're doing. So a few hundred yards, 400, 500, 600 feet, maybe a little bit more. It's a great place to be. If you can afford the time to be a little bit slower and stay behind the plow truck, that's great. And if you've got to pass, just do so quickly and kind of safely.
All right, so I'll just go right into the next question. With that being said, is it really that important to stay 500 feet behind the plow truck?
Yeah. So it's important to give it distance in every direction. 500 feet, it's a good guideline for behind the truck. That usually puts you far enough behind the truck that you're not catching the salt spray, catching the snow spray, or the slush. You're benefiting from the clearer roads, but you're not so tight to the truck that the other stuff's bouncing up. If you're going to pass, you've got to give it room. A lot of times trucks will have a wing plow down, or will have salt coming out. So if you're too close as you're passing, if you're too close to the center of your lane, you run a risk of clipping some of that. So 500 feet behind is great, and if you're going to pass, again, leave as much room in your lane as you can so that stuff doesn't affect you.
Our district takes us all the way from as far north as Martin down to the state line, and pretty much from Coldwater over to the Decatur area.
Okay.
So it involves us driving on the back roads a lot, not just the highways.
Sure.
What should we do if we see a plow truck approaching us on a 2-lane road?
That's a really good question. The first thing you want to do is be as far right as you can be in your lane. So you're leaving as much room in your lane between you and the oncoming plow truck. Again, these are professional drivers. They've been in plows for a while. They know what they're doing, but they can't always control how much snow is being thrown or slush is being thrown around. So that buys you a little bit of room there. It also gives them room. We've all passed that semi on the highway. You're going a little too close, and we all get a little white knuckled for a second. It kind of relieves some of that stress as well. The more room, the bigger buffer you leave. I think the more comfortable everybody is with that pass going opposite directions. So get as far right as you can in your lane. Obviously, be safe. Don't leave your lane. If the right side of the lane maybe is still unplowed, or there's snow drifts over there, don't take that much of a risk. But move as far right as you can in your lane safely, and leave as much room to your left as you can.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Nick. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Is there any other advice you can give us for driving in the snow before we're done here?
The same stuff we hear every year. Driving in winter is kind of like muscle atrophy, right? You don't use a muscle for long enough, it starts to atrophy, and you got to retrain it. It's muscle memory. Driving in winter is the same way. We don't do it for 6, 7, 8 months in a row, then all of a sudden here's winter and your first snow, and you've got to remember it all. A few things you can do to remember every year is just slow down, reduce your speed. The safest way to prevent as many problems as possible is just reduce your speed. Take your time. Understand that you're working on a schedule. You've got to get somewhere by a certain time. I don't think anybody in the world would disapprove of you arriving 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late, rather than not arriving at all. Be prepared when you leave. Have whether it's an emergency medical kit, snacks, coat, blankets, a shovel, salt, sand, flares, whatever you might need for kind of an emergency readiness kit, have those in your vehicle. Make sure your cell phone is charged when you leave. That's probably the biggest tool I think any of us can have when we're in any kind of emergency situation. And most of all, I think just take your time. We talked about slowing down, but really taking your time, and that's just it's more than a physical thing. It's emotional, it's mental as well. Focus on what you're doing. Eliminate any distractions. No phones. Have your radio and your heat set so you're not messing around with them, and just really kind of focus on what you're doing. If you've got a GPS navigation system that you're using to get to your destination, have that somewhere where you're not taking your eyes off the road for too long or too far, and it's easy enough to adjust. A lot of the common sense stuff, I think, for the most part, but I think the biggest one is reducing speed and really focusing your attention on driving.
Thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.